Hi, everyone. And thanks, Kate, for that introduction and overview of Zoom. We'll just get started with some brief introductions. So again, my name is Amber. I use she, her pronouns. I have been blind since birth. I'm a certified Braille transcriber and proofreader, as well as a freelance arts and cultural access consultant, and I specialize in staff and volunteer training, editing and feedback on verbal and written description, and digital auditing. Last but not least, I am an audience member and visitor who is able to enjoy a deeper experience because of access efforts. So now, Flora, would you like to say a few words?
I would. Hi, everyone. I'm Flora. I volunteer at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston with the Access program, which is how I've met Hannah and Amber. My day job is I work in tech in Boston. Crazy, I know. And I'm really excited to be here. It's awesome to see where everyone is calling in from. I'm really excited to share the things that Amber has to teach us. I hope you guys are too. So I have started screen sharing. For those of you who can see the screen, it should be a white background, and then in black letters, it says AccessLEAD, creating accessible handouts. If you cannot see, please feel free to do whatever you need to let me know that I am just talking into the void. But other than that, Amber, if you want, I can kind of advance to the next slide and we can get this going.
Yeah, we can get started with the key terms. Before we dive into the handout formats, I thought it would be helpful to go over some key terms to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're all starting out with the same foundation. So I'll read through these quickly and then I'll go into some greater detail about each one. So we have screen reader, screen magnifier, text to speech, speech recognition software, refreshable Braille display, Braille transcription, large print, alt text or alternative text description, OCR or optical character recognition, and an acronym WCAG, which stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So moving next to a screen reader. This is a technology which renders text as either speech or Braille, and it provides access to all aspects of a computer or mobile device. So if you'll give me one moment, I will disconnect my headset and I'll play for you. I'll let you hear what a screen reader sounds like. So you won't you won't see my screen, but you'll hear, hopefully you'll hear audio coming from my computer. So give me one moment. And I'm also going to slow the speech down so that it's hopefully understandable.
Thank you for attending this webinar about creating accessible handouts.
So that was just a simple sentence for attending this webinar about creating accessible handouts. So that's just a little taste of what a screen reader would sound like to someone using it. And I'll pause after each term to see if anyone has any questions. So do we have any questions about screen readers? All right, moving next to screen magnifier. This is a software which magnifies text on a computer or mobile device. Moving next to text to speech. This is the translation of text information to synthesized speech, as you just heard. Moving next to speech recognition software. This is a program which translates spoken words into text, and it's used in place of a standard keyboard. And I would imagine that many of you use speech recognition software on a daily basis when you use the dictation function to send a quick text message or email from your phone or tablet. And I think we can probably all agree that the proliferation of this technology on so many of our devices really does count as universal design for the masses. So I think this technology is definitely here to stay. All right, and with no questions about text to speech, we'll move on, or speech recognition rather, we'll move on to refreshable Braille display. A refreshable Braille display is a device which uses a series of pins in the shape of the 6 dots in a Braille character, also known as a Braille cell. And each of these pins is attached to an electrical control signal, which raises each dot to form a Braille character. These signals allow for the Braille characters to refresh as each new word and each new line of text appears. So I've included 2 photos here of 2 different styles of refreshable Braille display. On the left, there is a photo of a 40 character or 40 cell display. So this means that every line of text displayed will be 40 characters long. And it's more of a stationary device. So it's generally just connected to a computer left at someone's desk or workstation. It's not very portable. The one on the right, however, is called a Braille Sense, and it's a 32 character display. So each line of text is 32 cells long. And this is known as a note taker because it functions much like a computer or tablet. And along with a refreshable Braille display, this device has keys for typing. So if we don't have questions about Braille displays, we can move along to Braille transcription.
Oh, and actually,
yep.
real quick, I'm seeing a couple questions in the Q&A that I think you can answer quickly.
Okay.
One was, I guess the first one, how fast does the Braille display refresh?
It refreshes as quickly as someone is able to press the scroll button. So it's got scroll buttons on the left and right that can scroll by line. So as quickly as I want to read, I can make that happen. There's also an auto scroll feature, which can be activated, and that will just sort of scroll the Braille automatically without any additional input.
Cool.
And there are different ways of adjusting that auto scroll feature.
Nice. And then we also had a clarification question just generally about the Braille display. Could you just go into detail about like use cases for it?
Oh, sure. So a Braille display can really be used in tandem with the screen reader, or it can be with the spoken text to speech synthesizer, or it can be used in the case of someone who may also be deafblind. So if someone doesn't have, isn't able to hear a speech synthesizer, or simply just doesn't want to hear it, there are certain times when a person will just prefer to have Braille only, without the extra chatter that comes from the screen reader, from the text to speech synthesizer.
Cool.
And also with the note-taking device, that's very handy, to just throw in a backpack or a purse, so that someone could access Braille on the go.
Cool. Awesome. Let's see. Let me just check this. Is the Braille display good for other languages?
Yes, as long as the I believe that as long as the Braille itself is in the correct language, and as long as the document is written in the correct language, the Braille display should be able to recognize and identify that language. Because with any language, the 6-dot configuration, or you still only have 6 dots to use. It's just kind of the order and arrangement of the dots which changes.
That makes sense. Cool. I don't see any additional questions about the refreshable Braille display. So I'm going to advance to the next slide, and Amber, feel free to get into Braille transcription whenever you feel like it.
All right, great. Braille transcription is the process by which a print document is turned into Braille. This process is often automated with the use of Braille translation software. However, human intervention is recommended for best results, because this software doesn't always get everything right. So if there are no questions about Braille transcription, we can move on to large print. This is a term which describes a printed document that has been enlarged for easier readability by people with low vision. Moving on to alt text, or alternative text description. This is brief descriptions or labels inserted within a document or website to convey information about images. Moving on to OCR, optical character recognition. This is a technology that recognizes text within a digital image. OCR can be performed after an image has been scanned and saved to a computer. And OCR allows for the scan to be converted into editable text. It's important to know, though, that documents which have been created using OCR must be proofread and often need to be modified with headings and other elements of formatting.
Amber, just going to jump in real quick. We have a question that I think we touch upon later,
Okay.
but the standard large print font size.
Oh yes, we will touch on it later, but it's anything greater than 18.
Awesome. All right. And then how detailed does alt text need to be so that it's effective but not annoying to the viewer? I will also caveat that we're doing a little alt text demo in like 7 slides, actually 6. But yeah, if you wanted to expand on that, Amber.
Sure. Yeah. Generally, it only needs to be about 2 to 3 sentences.
Nice.
It can be brief.
Mhm.
And there's also sometimes people will include within their alt text description whether or not an image is purely for decorative purposes, which can sometimes be useful too.
Mhm. And then a follow-up to the alt text question. How is alt text different than image description?
Well, I think that within the confines of a document or a website, it's essentially the same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it is the same thing, just kind of a different term or word.
Nice. And then kind of expanding on that question, for like pieces of art, is it okay to be really descriptive, like using a lot of details? And a similar question is like, do you need to describe colors? I think the question basically boils down to, does the type of alt text differ on the medium? Like if you were to include alt text for something for the MFA versus, something to send to something corporate that's not art related.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that the alt text can be modified or kind of written to fit the occasion or fit the use of the document. So I would think that if it was for a museum, it would be
Mhm.
appropriate to go into a bit more detail.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and certainly colors would be acceptable pieces
Mhm.
of detail to use.
Yeah. And then final question on alt text, about, would you put in the time to describe a background if it doesn't affect the actual meaning? I personally think that if you're describing an image, you should describe the whole image. Amber, where do you fall on that?
Um, yeah, I think so too. I mean, I wouldn't if it's a background, I wouldn't worry about going into a ton of detail, but I think just at least making a passing mention of the background
Mhm.
is a nice thing to add.
Awesome. All right. So this last question for this section is on OCR. Um, would OCR work with images of historic newspapers?
That's a good question, and it probably depends on the
Mhm.
quality of the image that you're starting with. So if you did scan an image of a historic newspaper article or something, uh, it's I think it might be maybe hit or miss as to how well the optical character recognition is going to work.
Mhm.
So this is definitely a scenario where you'll want to really put in a lot of time and effort to make sure that the OCR is true to what actually appears in the image.
That makes sense. Alrighty. So there is a question in the chat about alt text, but I think we'll get to it when we do our demo.
Okay.
I think otherwise, I think we're good to move on to WCAG.
Okay. So web content accessibility guidelines are a set of guidelines that were developed by the World Wide Web Consortium in collaborations with individuals from around the world. And these guidelines refer to media such as sound, images, videos, text, and the use of color. And they're intended to help people have better access to these media if they are blind or low vision, deaf or hard of hearing, or have cognitive disabilities. These guidelines apply to web content, but also to PDFs. So with that gets us through our key terms. And we can move on to the next slide, which will just briefly run through the handout formats we'll be talking about today. So those formats will be Microsoft Word documents, PDFs, PowerPoint presentations, Braille, and large print. So diving right into Microsoft Word and asking the question, why Word? Well, the reason we like Word is that it's a format which can be made accessible in a short amount of time and with minimal effort. So moving right along to key elements of an accessible Word document. And before I get into these, let me just say that I'm going to run through them, sort of go through all of them, and then Flora and I will kind of demo all of these with a little very simplistic handout that I've created. So just bear with us as we get through these, and then we'll get to the demo. So using headings of various levels for ease of navigation. And for best results with a screen reader, you must use the built-in styles section within Word. It's important to group related items together in numbered or bulleted lists. And you should use lists instead of complex tables. If you have images within your Word document, you want to use alt text to describe those images. Moving along now to hyperlinks. Sometimes you may want to insert a link in your document, and you can do this by using the Insert Hyperlink dialog to make the links accessible. And when we talk about making a link accessible, that means it can be activated from directly within the document using either the Enter key, the space bar, or speech recognition software. You'll want to ensure that the hyperlink stands out from the surrounding text for easy recognition by those with low vision. And the hyperlink dialog within Word has a section for entering display text. And you'll want to make this display text something meaningful and recognizable to someone with no or low vision. And if we move along to the next slide, we'll talk about this a little more. Describing your links with meaningful display text helps people know more about the link and its purpose before deciding whether to activate it or just to skip past it. And hearing an embedded link within a document labeled with meaningful display text is a lot more, it's a lot more seamless than hearing the screen reader read an entire URL with a lot of periods, slashes, equal signs, all sorts of things. So meaningful display text also allows for easy activation with speech recognition software. So for someone to use speech recognition software to activate a link, the display text should be easy to remember and to repeat. So I think now, Flora, if you're ready, we can move on to our demo document. Yeah.
Alrighty. So I know there's still a lot of follow-up questions about alt text. I totally understand. I too felt just question marks about alt text. We're going to go through a demo right now. I'm going to try to awkwardly switch the screen share. For those of you who can see the screen, I hope that you can see a Word doc with a black background, or I guess like the sides of it are black. I have the dark mode on my Microsoft Word turned on, and I have it zoomed in. So it's just a white document, and in black text, it says LEAD Conference 2022, and then there are further details. So what we're going to do first is essentially make this handout using the levels that Amber talked about. We're going to use that to structure it in a way where a screen reader can pick it up and you can understand better how this is formatted. So we'll start there, and then we're going to go into making lists, and then we're going to touch on hyperlinks. After that, page 2 is the alt text demo, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions there. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the demo here. If anyone is not able to see, please find a way to let me know. Otherwise, I will just keep blasting forward. All right. So we're looking at a document right now. It's all typed up in Times New Roman, size 12-point font, and it's not formatted at all. There's no bold, there's no italics, underlines. Everything is the same size. So when Amber talked about levels, what she was talking about is up here at the top of your Microsoft Word, you have like your little ribbon that has your toolbar. That's where you can change your font size, your font color. That's where you can adjust the alignment. There's a section on the Home tab. So let me back up for a second. On the top ribbon, which we'll call it the ribbon, that's where all of your little toolbars are. And there are sub-menus. There's the File menu, the Home menu, Insert, Design, Layout, etc. So these are, I'll call them, I guess, like sub-menus. So in the Home sub-menu, there is a section called Styles. That's this right here. I know gesturing with my mouse isn't the best, but it's basically halfway on your screen on the toolbar. And where it says Styles, it has just a bunch of different, it just says like capital A, lowercase a, capital B, lowercase b. This is an option to change the styles of your text. So if I go and highlight the first thing, LEAD Conference 2022, I'm going to go into this menu by clicking either this little drop down over here that gives me the more option, or you can just click directly onto it. I'm hovering right now over the third option, which is heading 1, and the text has already gone and transformed itself. It's now blue. It's a sans serif font, so it doesn't have like the little feet on the tops and the bottoms. And it's a lighter blue color, and it's larger. So this kind of tells us if we wanted something to be our first heading, we could use this format. These are preset formats that Microsoft Word offers. If you want to go and tinker with them, you're welcome to do that. But I think this is the default, and default is usually easier for, I guess, for universal acceptance. So I'm going to click on heading 1. So now I've gone and made LEAD Conference 2022 a heading, and I've made it a heading 1. So there's a couple empty spaces between LEAD Conference 2022 and the next line. So I'm going to delete those extra spaces. So now we're looking at 4 lines that say where. The next line says Raleigh, North Carolina. The next line says when. And then the next line says August 3rd, or 3, 4, and 5. So let's just do a little editing here. Let's add a colon after where, and then a space. And I'm going to delete the line so that Raleigh, North Carolina comes up. So that where, like colon, Raleigh, North Carolina, all one line. I'm going to do the same for when. So add a colon, add a space, and then delete until you get the dates back up there. So now it looks like an invitation where the where and the when are one line each. Now we want this to pop out. So we're going to highlight. And I should also add there are 2 ways to highlight. Right now, my cursor is leftmost on the line. If I kind of click where my cursor is, hold down, and then I drag my mouse to the right side, the right end of the last line, it'll highlight everything. Another thing you can do if you're on the Windows computer is keep your cursor on the leftmost side, basically where you want to start, hit Shift, and if you hit down, it takes the whole first line. And then if you hit down again, it takes the whole second line. I just prefer to do that because I find keyboards faster. So now I have the first 2 lines highlighted. And now I'm going to go into styles again. And we don't want it to be the same heading as the first one, right? The first one is the title. These are secondary details. Let's use heading 2. So I'm going and I'm just highlighting right now because it's not permanent. But if I click it, there it is. Also, you can always undo things in Word, which is good to remember.
And Flora,
Yes.
I like that you pointed out some of the keyboard commands. Another handy keyboard command for actually doing that second level heading, once you've highlighted the text, you can do Control-Alt-2, the number 2 on the numpad or on the number row.
Cool.
So that's just another quicker way to do that.
Nice. Alrighty. So next we have why attend, and then we have a brief little sort of sizzle reel saying that you will have the chance to hear presentations by arts and culture professionals from organizations such as, and then there's a list of museums, libraries, zoos, aquariums, and theaters. So I think we want to highlight why attend, just because, you know, you want to tell the people why you want to attend. So let's go and highlight why attend. And then Amber, do we want to do a heading 3 for it?
Let's do a 3, yeah.
All right. So now we're at heading 3. So heading 1 was the title. Heading 2 were the key details, where and when. And then this is kind of the secondary, or I guess tertiary detail, which is, you know, why do you want to attend? We're going to leave the sentence on have the chance to hear presentations by arts and culture professionals. We're going to leave that as is, just normal black 12-point Times New Roman, but we're going to make a list. So in order to make a list, it's super easy. You just highlight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor on the left side of museums, and then I'm going to click and drag across museums, down past libraries, down past zoos, past aquariums, and theaters. And then I'm going to let go of my mouse. So now I have all 5 highlighted. We just want to create a bulleted list. The bulleted list is a little, I guess, nicer looking than a numbered list, but also, you know, I think the numbered list, the numbers would serve a purpose. And here we're just kind of saying these are all of the options that you have. So in order to do that, I'm just going to highlight. And now that it's highlighted, I'm going to go back up to the ribbon. And at the top of the ribbon, there is a section called paragraph. This is where you can add your bullets, your numbered lists, you can indent, you can change your alignment. So I'm just going to hit the bulleted list option, and now we've made a list. So then moving down, we now have learn more. For more information, visit the Office of Accessibility at the Kennedy Center, and then we've got a pretty long amount of information. So one is just, I think, the heading from the website, which is accessibility, and then there's that long bar, which I think is called a pipe, Kennedy Center, and then there's a URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to the end of the, actually first I'm going to change the heading. So we're going to take learn more, and I think we're going to turn it into heading 2, because it is separate from the overall announcement. This is kind of outside of the announcement if you want to learn more. So I'm going to go to the end of, for more information, visit the Office of Accessibility at the Kennedy Center. I'm going to hit enter so that I get onto the next line. And then let's see if we can find it. I think it's an insert. So we're going to go up to this, what did we call it? A submenu, the insert submenu. And then there's about halfway through again, there's a little area for links. If we click this link menu, there's a little arrow, which is a drop down. And we're going to go to the bottom option, which says insert link. Before I do that, I'm going to go back down over here. We have all of this information here mostly because it's easier than having to find it again. So I'm highlighting the URL. I'm highlighting all the way from the https : / all the way down to the end of it. I'm going to go back to the insert link. That pops up a menu which gives us 2 options. One is text to display, and the other one is address. Also, it's confused right now because I highlighted it, so that's my bad. All right. So for the address, I'm going to go and copy and paste. So Control V or right click paste the URL that I just highlighted. And then for text to display, that just essentially says, what do you want people to read on the word that is going to be your hyperlink? Let's call it Kennedy Center Access. All right. And now we're going to hit OK. So now what we have is in blue, it says Kennedy Center Access. And if I hover over it, it tells me the URL, which is the https : / www.kennedy-center.org/visit/accessibility. All right, so I'm going to go and delete the extra stuff at the bottom because we don't need that anymore. Woohoo, nice. And then that went and deleted other stuff I didn't need. All right. So that's where we are for this handout. I'm going to zoom out a tiny bit so we can maybe see the full thing. So we have all of the headings. We have a list that is bulleted, and we've inserted a hyperlink. So I know there's probably been a lot of questions generating throughout that. So I'm going to pause here if that's okay with you, Amber, and kind of take a look. Anything that's on alt text, I will leave until after our alt text demo.
Yep.
All right. So I think for levels, let's see, there was a question about what did we mean when we said levels. And I think that the various use headings of the various levels for ease. So that refers to what we were doing with the heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. Those are the different levels. Let's see, we do have a question. Amber, I told you this would happen. We had a question about Google Docs.
Oh, yes.
Touch on, like, so the question is, does this apply to choosing a text type on Google Docs, normal text, heading 1, subtitle, etc.?
This probably would apply, but I don't want to answer very definitively about this because Google Docs, I would not, I don't like Google Docs for accessibility. It's there tend to be a lot of different commands that someone using a screen reader has to use to even get into a Google Doc and read it. It's not, it can be done, but it's not my first choice. So you probably can do a lot of these things in a Google Doc, but I can't speak with a lot of authority or expertise about how accessible it's going to be. So I would really urge you to use a Microsoft Word document if at all possible.
Yep, sounds good. And then this is kind of a similar question in that, you know, Canva versus Adobe. I know that when we get to the PDF section, we'll talk about converting Microsoft Word to PDF. Do you have any knowledge on, you know, the accessibility of products created from either Canva or Adobe?
I'm not familiar. What the first one was it Canva?
Yeah, it's like Canvas without the S, just to make it sound weird.
Okay, yeah.
It's like a graphic design, you know, free software.
Okay, yeah. I'm not familiar at all with Canva, but Adobe does have more support for making your document accessible. Actually, when I was doing research for the PDF section, I did find that Adobe seemed to have quite a bit of material on their website about ensuring that the PDF is accessible.
Nice. Okay, and then just a couple quick follow-ups. I know that we are moving along in time, so I'm just going to answer these, and then we're going to move on to the alt text demo. In terms of, you know, for the alt text for the hyperlink demo, we basically just typed out Kennedy Center Access as a separate line. There were questions about, you know, could we just use the hyperlink within the sentence? So the visit the Office of Accessibility at the Kennedy Center, and you just make the Kennedy Center a hyperlink. Amber, from an accessibility perspective, is it easier to have the hyperlink be like a standalone line, or is it okay to kind of just have that role in the sentence?
It does tend to be a little easier if it's a standalone line, but I do think that if you had it in the middle of the sentence, someone could access it with a screen reader. It might just take a bit more finagling, but it could be done. Nice. But you would want to, if you wanted to use the Kennedy Center, you'd want to make sure to enter those words, the Kennedy Center, in your display in that display text field or text to display field.
Yep, that makes sense. Alrighty, so I'm going to scroll on down, and now we are looking at an image of, hang on. All right, now we're looking at an image. It is an image of the Kennedy Center, because this is sponsored by the Kennedy Center. We're trying to figure out what image to do, and we're like, should we just do puppies? Like everyone wants so we're gonna work on the cakes. So we're gonna go and insert some alt text here. So I know there's a lot of questions about alt text. in order to kind of get through the material we have, we can't make this an alt text only presentation. So this demo is just going to be physically, how do you make it happen? Super easy. I had no idea how to do it. I was shocked at how easy it was. We click on the image. You know that you've kind of highlighted it because the little circles on the edges pop up, and then you right click. And then literally third from the bottom, it says edit alt text. You click that, a menu on the right side pops up. Let me see if I can expand it. I'm sorry if I can zoom in the page. I can't zoom in the text, but the section says alt text. How would you describe this object in its context to someone who's blind or low vision? And then it offers a couple suggestions: the subject, parentheses, subjects in detail, the setting, the actions or interactions, other relevant information, 1 to 2 sentences recommended. So there's a blank box where we can, offer our ideas. And there's also a button that says generate a description for me, which we're going to hit just because it's fun to, see what a robot thinks it's going to be. We love the robot brain. All right, so the robot, the Microsoft AI gave us a building with a body of water in front of it, which is quite accurate, I would say. Yeah. We are going to go and add a little more oomph to it. It's very bare, a building with a body of water in front of it. It doesn't give us enough to be fully descriptive. So let's try doing this. So this building has 2 levels. There's the main level, and then there's kind of a secondary roof. I assume that the top level maybe has a larger terrace. So we're going to call this, get in here. Oh no, where are you? All right, I'm going to go back out and come back in. All right, a 2-level rectangular building, all right, is supported by, there's these little slim beams that stand in front of it. And then it's in front of a little body of water, and the sky above it is blue. So what we're going to say is a 2-level rectangular building is supported by slim beams in front of a body of water underneath a blue sky. So that's the first sentence. Just basically, it's the same thing that the AI gave us. It's just a little more descriptive. 2-level rectangular building supported by slim beams, which, surround it, in front of a body of water underneath a blue sky. And then across the top, and then in large white letters, and then I'm going to open up quotes, the Kennedy, that's not how you spell Kennedy. There we go. The Kennedy Center welcomes you, exclamation mark. All right, and then I forgot to write, it reads. So now it says across the top in large white letters, it reads, the Kennedy Center welcomes you. There is an option here to mark something as decorative. So if you were to include an image that doesn't, have any bearing on the actual meaning of what you're trying to get across, it's just decorative, you could mark that there. I will note that here you don't actually have to save the specific alt text, it's auto saves it for you. I'm going to exit out of that, and now the alt text is saved there. So I'm going to now leave the Word doc and go back into the presentation, and hopefully it'll go smoothly and we can actually see everything. All right. Let's see. So we should be on a slide that, again, white background, black text that says the problem with PDFs. I know there's a lot of questions still about alt text. I totally understand that. It is 3:18. So in the interest of just getting through our presentation, we're going to keep moving with this information. And if there's time at the end, Amber, are you good if we come back to those questions if we have time?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Back to you then.
All right. Thank you so much, Flora. That demo, I think, was so helpful for everybody. And so PDFs, and this may be the last format we have time for. I apologize. I prepared a lot more information than I could fit in. But before we really start talking about PDFs, I'll just acknowledge that PDFs are probably our most complicated and complex format to make accessible. So this is just going to be a high level, brief overview of how to make a PDF accessible. But I have tried to include at the end some more extensive resources so that people don't leave just feeling completely discouraged and intimidated by PDFs. So to better help us understand what makes a PDF accessible, I wanted to start out with the bad news first, which is there are a couple of ways to create PDFs which will absolutely guarantee them to be inaccessible. So I wanted to go over those first to really let you know not to use these methods. And that is to either scan a document and save it as a PDF, or to use the print as PDF option found in most word processors. So when you do that and someone opens it using a screen reader, the only word they will hear is image. So that is not going to be helpful. The only way to make these types of PDFs accessible is to spend a lot of time doing OCR, adding tags, and other formatting. So now let's move on to how we can make PDFs accessible from the get-go. So I'll first run through, similar to the way we did with Word, I'll run through these generally and then give specific definitions and examples. So you want to ensure that your document is properly tagged. Then you want to ensure that these tags are displayed in the correct reading order. Similar to Word, you want to use accessible hyperlinks, use alt text where appropriate, and make sure that all the text within the document can be selected. And if the text can be selected, then that is a good sign that a screen reader is going to at least be able to recognize the text within the document. So now let's move on and talk more about these specific elements. So a tag is a piece of computer code which defines a text element for screen reading software. This is similar to the styles within a Word document. So it could be a heading, a list, or a paragraph. So once the screen reader knows, once the screen reader sees this tag, it could then convey the information. Reading order refers to the order in which the document is read by a screen reader. And this is often different from the view that a person who is sighted will have of the document. The order of document tags has a major effect on the reading order for screen reading software. And I'm going to deviate from the slide just a bit because I was able to sort of come up with a kind of a last minute example for you to kind of illustrate reading order. So to illustrate reading order, let's think about text on a page that's arranged in 2 columns. The sighted reader would immediately comprehend that the columns are meant to be read vertically. So you read down 1 column and then you move over and read down all the way down the 2nd column. However, a screen reader is not going to necessarily know how to interpret these columns. So if you have 2 columns on a page, the screen reader is likely going to just read straight across the columns rather than vertically. So one possible workaround is to use the page layout style in Word and create columns that way. This will ensure that the document has a tag associated with those columns, and then the screen reader will be able to recognize that tag and will know how to read the document. So that's a nice way to segue into our next slide, which is talking about using a Word document to make a PDF. So if you use a Word document that you already know is accessible, this is going to be your most effective and efficient option for making your PDF accessible. And I think we'll have time because I think this is pretty important for people to see. I think we'll have time for you to show that, Flora, how you can use the publish as PDF feature in Word.
Yes, alrighty. We're going back into the Word doc. All right, I hope we're back in the Word doc. If you guys can't see, I do have the chat up, so if you can't see, holler. So all we're doing is saving this Word doc in a different format. The most important thing is as you save it as a PDF, make sure that you have a specific box checked. So let's go up to the top at the ribbon. We're going to go to the File submenu. We're going to click that. We're going to go to Save As. Below that, there is Save As Adobe PDF. I know that Adobe is the default application that most of us use for reading PDFs. I would recommend against choosing that option, just because someone else that sees this document who needs to understand it may not be using Adobe. They may be using, the multitude of other products that are available. The ability to save it as an Adobe PDF, to me, I think it might just be like good product placement. It might just be a good like brand partnership. So I would highly recommend just going with your usual Save As menu. So we have a Save As menu. Can I zoom this in? I cannot. I am very sorry. I know it's harder to see these things when they're screen shared. But you have the usual option where it's like, what folder do you have it in? I have it in downloads. What name do you want to call it? What format? Right now it's a Word doc. So it's a .docx. Underneath, there is something that says more options. We're going to click on that. That opens up the old dialog menu that says Save As, and it kind of lists the items that are in the folder you're saved as. If we go down to the bottom, it has file name, and then it has Save As type. So let's change that first. We're going to hit Save As type, which currently says Word document. We're going to hit that, and there's an option underneath all of the different Word options that for PDF. We're going to select PDF. The options beneath that have changed. So it says authors, which is Flora Huang, that's me. There's tags, we can add a tag. Title, we can add a title. This is kind of the like back end, not something you would see in the document, but it tells the computer more about this specific file. There's now a box that says options, and then there's a ... for more. We're going to click that. So now it opens up another dialog box. At the very bottom here, under, not the very bottom, second submenu from the bottom, it says include non-printing information. There's an option to create a bookmark using something. There's an option to explore document properties. Then there's something that says document structure tags for accessibility. This is already checked. We want to make sure it's already checked. If it isn't, then you should check it. This is how you find the super important box to check to make sure that it is tagged for accessibility. It is checked. We're all set. We're going to hit OK. And now we're going to hit save. Once I hit save, the file is going to open up as a PDF because I have selected the option open file after publishing. If I didn't select it, it wouldn't do it, which is fine. You can still open it. It just won't automatically open for you right away. So I'm going to hit save, and the wheel's going to spin. It's going to think. It's going to generate my PDF. And let me go and share the PDF. Oh, I have so many screens up. All right. So now, hopefully, we are all looking at my Adobe screen, where we have the handout that we have constructed. And then if we go to the bottom, we also have the image that we did the alt text on. So I'm going to go back now to the PowerPoint, and hopefully this time it'll show just the PowerPoint. And then Amber, I just want to give you a heads up that we are at 3:28.
Yes, so I'll just say one more quick thing about PDFs, which is that there are a lot of PDF accessibility checklists available online, and these can help you verify that the PDF document you've created is accessible. And I've included a link for one of those checklists in the resources. So I know we are about out of time, but the one final thing I would just like to say, I apologize, we're going to have to skip PowerPoint, Braille, and large print, but you will have access to the information on these slides. I just want to go quickly to user experts, and I want to really encourage all of you to consult with a user expert if you have any doubt whatsoever about the accessibility of your documents. User experts can either use screen reading software or screen magnifiers to really give you a lot of useful feedback and to suggest improvements that can help you make your document more accessible. And for people who may not be sure how to find user experts, you could try consulting with your state or local cultural councils. They may have resources. You could also reach out to consumer organizations like the American Council of the Blind or the National Federation of the Blind. These groups often have listservs where you can post your request to the community. So that will be really helpful for you as you make your documents.
Awesome.
And I've included my own contact information on the very last slide, and just feel free to be in touch. I've included my cell phone and my email, and I welcome any additional questions or if you're seeking advice on accessible documents. So thank you so much to Hannah and Kate and the rest of the Kennedy Center Access team. And thanks so much to Flora for being my co-presenter today.
Thank you, Amber.
Mhm.
All right.
Right,
I'm going
this is-
to.
I was gonna say, this is Kate again. We want to thank Amber and Flora. That was absolutely fantastic. So much information and super informative. To all of you who are asking, we will try to follow up on all of those unanswered questions and possibly have even inspired a future webinar because everybody wants more information. That will conclude our presentation, and we'll be closing the webinar window in just a moment.